I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
This is Brian.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 78th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, your home for Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas. And tonight, we are concluding our voyage through the Star Trek Next Generation era movies with Star Trek Nemesis.
The prequel to the Picard show, if I'm not mistaken.
That is, I guess, one way of looking at it.
And then what if Picard show gets a movie? Then it won't be the last Next Generation movie.
No, because that would be the first Picard show movie.
He still gets on being Next Generation.
Yeah.
I mean, Generations isn't a TOS movie just because Kirk and Scotty and Chekhov are in it.
If it starred them, it would be.
It arguably stars Kirk. I would say co-stars. Kirk gets more screen time than, say, Dr. Crusher in that movie.
Look, the important thing I was trying to say was it has Romulan shit in it, and this Romulan shit will presumably have some repercussions.
One would hope.
Yeah.
Along with, of course, the destruction of Romulus
from the next movie.
From the next movie, yeah.
But we do know that the Picard show is being ran by Michael Chabon, who actually has gone on record as saying that he views the long history of Star Trek in the continuity and the canon as not something that is really going to get in the way of writing, but something that is an advantage that he wants to pull things from. So I think we'll definitely see
Everybody says that.
Not everyone says that. Some people say that they hate dealing with that, and it's very hard.
Is that like Nicholas Meyer? The best Star Trek writer?
I mean, the Discovery writers had such a hard time with it that they gave up on the 23rd century. They're like, we can't do this anymore. It's too hard.
Get out of here.
Yeah. We're going into uncharted territory.
Yes,
but enough about these current Star Trek shows.
Yes.
We're going back to 2002, the first year ever that a Star Trek movie and Star Wars movie both came out in the same year. And that was
interesting.
Nemesis and Attack of the Clones.
Quick question: which one do you take between them?
Definitely Nemesis.
Nemesis. Yeah.
But I would take any Star Trek movie over Attack of the Clones.
I would not go that far, but I would take Nemesis over Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones beats Star Trek 5.
Yeah, I think I gotta agree that I would take Nemesis.
I would take any Star Trek movie or any Star Trek episode over any Star Wars prequel.
Oh, no. Most of the Star Wars movies, I think, are better than most of the Star Trek films. Or
get off this set!
I'm sorry. Star Wars makes better movies. Star Trek makes better TV shows.
He has always held to his theory that it's a TV show.
50% of Star Wars movies are fucking garbage, though.
In your opinion.
It's not a good track record.
In your opinion.
This movie, Star Trek Nemesis, it's interesting, like, the fan reactions to it. It gets a lot of hate and a lot of love, I think.
I feel like it gets a lot of hate and a little bit of love. I don't know if it's like experienced any sort of resurgence lately, the way the motion picture had a huge resurgence. I actually, as the guy who had the love-hate with Next Generation through its entire run, but had enjoyed some of the movies. And honestly, the action-y nature of them was a little bit, kind of won me over a little bit at times. And this has a lot of action shit in it. I kind of liked it right out of the gate. And have generally liked it on revisits, although I think I felt a little more critical this time, for reasons we will discuss.
I got to be part of the PR hype machine for Nemesis. Our Star Trek club on opening night set up a booth and had posters, and we're there in uniform, shaking hands and handing out flyers as people went in to see the movie on opening night. And we took turns taking breaks to go in and see the movie. And I also was
that fun?
Yes, that was great fun. I met years later. I would see. I remember you. You were the guy at the premiere of Star Trek Nemesis. Nice. And I also got to be on the radio. The local radio DJ heard that I was a big Star Trek nerd and put me on the radio for a big talk about this movie. I also did 09 for the guy too. But and that was a lot of fun too. So I was part of the PR for this, and in a very small scale in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is where the wedding takes place.
So we should take everything you say now with a grain of salt, because you're bought and paid for.
Well, nobody paid
that
me
big
nothing,
Paramount money.
But I did get to be famous and stand in front of people. That was kind of cool. I really liked this movie when I saw it. I felt like this was the most Deep Space Nine-y of the movies, and I love Deep Space Nine and the darker, grittier, more shadowy type stuff and war and blow them up. And
what's funny is I liked all that stuff, but my favorite scene in this is probably the wedding scene.
Well, the wedding scene was set in Alaska, so yay!
It's a big win for Alaska's Tourism Bureau, which is the other thing that paid you off.
Yes. I watched this movie earlier tonight, rewatched Nemesis earlier tonight, which makes it 2 weddings I've seen in the last week in Alaska. So
that's impressive. Fatheree, what was your first take on it?
I kind of came out of the theater kind of mixed on this movie. Mm-hmm. There was definitely sequences in here that I truly adored and loved. I was also just very happy to finally get a Star Trek movie after going 4 years without, which I thought was criminal. How could they give us only a TV show and no movie for 4 years? How little I knew how sad it could get.
You were about to enter the desert.
Yes, sir. But, I did have problems with it almost immediately. And some of those things I've actually soured on even more now. But the things that I like, I still like. And this movie it's in my bottom 5 Star Trek movies, but it's the top of those bottom 5.
It's also features I had all but forgotten this, that Tom Hardy is the big bad who's gone on to this pretty massive career since then.
I had already seen Tom Hardy in Black Hawk Down and maybe one or two other little things. But this was the first time where he ever
Everybody
stood
in Black
out.
Hawk Down, they were kind of samey.
This was
good movie though.
I always thought that Tom Hardy gave a really good, really interesting performance in this movie, and we didn't really see much more of him until many years later. Until I think the next big mainstream thing he was on was probably Inception.
Yeah. He doesn't
several years later.
I noticed he doesn't have crazy voice in this. Yeah. There's no Bane crazy voice or the quavering voice from Venom or the muzzle from Fury Road.
That's one of my problems with Tom Hardy is that everything he's in now, he has to talk in a stupid voice, just like Johnny Depp and just like Benicio del Toro.
Yeah,
they can never.
You think they're gimmick actors?
They can't play like a normal person.
Yeah,
and this is the most normal that Tom Hardy comes off of. Until the end of the movie when he starts turning into a monster.
Right, he does have a weird voice when he's the holo projector.
Yeah, but that was a digital distortion.
Yeah, I know.
But overall he's a reflective of Picard character with very proper English and a serious accent.
And he kind of apes Picardiness.
Yeah.
Well. We're talking about weird voices though. They do a distortion on all the Reman characters, like the weird mutant Romulans from the Dark Planet. They lower all Ron Perlman's voice, and the director Stuart Baird, who I got a bunch of nasty things to say about.
Do they also lower Worf's voice?
They do it to Worf's voice, and it makes every Worf line in this movie sound terrible, and I hate it.
I didn't notice it.
I didn't even notice it.
No,
I thought he was.
Now that you mention it, I remember reading it years ago, but I didn't notice it in my most recent review.
Every time Worf speaks in this movie, it rubs me the wrong way.
But they reboot the Klingons in Discovery, and you're okay with it. But if they change Worf's voice,
because I had seen Worf on 7 years of Next Generation, 4 years of DS9 and 3 previous movies where he talked normal. It seems really weird to fuck up his voice all of a sudden for no reason other than the fact that the director thought it was cool, and this director also had no. It's hard to say this without sounding like a whiny fanboy, but the director had like no respect for Star Trek.
I agree with you in general,
a lot of evidence for
but
that.
you are sounding like a Discovery hater.
No, because I just explained why that's different, because those are different Klingons. Like, we haven't seen those. And to be fair, like, I don't really like the distortion on their voice in Discovery either, but it doesn't bother me as much. It would bother me if, like, they didn't do it for a decade, or for over a decade, for 15 years, and then start doing it. It would be a little jarring. But Stuart Baird was brought onto this movie to action it up. They wanted a guy from outside the franchise who would make a big mainstream hit, and he's famously known as a very good action movie editor. He's worked on like some of the big movies, like I think like Lethal Weapon, and a bunch of like incredibly successful action movies.
Remember, his directorial debut is, I think, the underrated action movie Executive Decision that blows up Steven Seagal before the guys sneak on board a plane to stop terrorists.
I can't comment because I don't think I've seen that.
It's actually really pretty fun.
The version I heard was
fun.
that basically he fixed a movie for them in the editing room, and they weren't going to give him credit, but then he said, well, if you're not going to give me credit, what are you going to give me? And they said, well, we'll give you a big movie to direct, because you've always wanted to direct a big, expensive movie. And then they said, well, what are we going to give him? We've got Star Trek coming up. Give him Star Trek.
He turned down Star Trek initially.
Yeah.
And then like they went back to him and got him to do it. He also thought that Geordi was an alien, and that's why he has the odd-looking eyes. He didn't know that those are like optical implants. He thought that Geordi was an alien, and he also kept calling LeVar Burton Laverne.
Yeah.
The actors on set hated him.
No, I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm just saying that they changed the Klingons, and I don't like it. Was felt very similar to other things I've heard. But yeah, I don't like Stuart Baird either.
But some of the action sequences in this movie do work very well. They're well put together. He can edit together an action scene.
Yeah.
It's arguably too actiony for Star Trek. Would you say it's the most actiony Star Trek?
Before
in the pre-Kelvin
before
world.
Kelvin, the Kelvin's way more action.
Assume before Kelvin.
Yeah. So
and
it actually feels very restrained watching it after the Kelvin movies. I'm like, oh, this is so mild.
They also brought in a new writer. They brought in John Logan,
who
was really hot at the time. He had just done Gladiator and Any Given Sunday, and he was friends with Brent Spiner, which is part of how he got the job. But he was a massive Star Trek fan, and I remember like reading interviews with him and like the Star Trek magazine and Star Trek Communicator. I was very excited to see this movie simply because of the he was saying all the right things about how he was saying stuff like I was like kind of disappointed in how like they handled Kirk's death in Generations, and I want to make sure like we treat these characters very well. I was like, oh, what if that means someone's gonna die? Yeah. And there were rumors that Data would die in this movie, but he was also talking about how like I wanted to have like a great villain like Khan, but have him be like a young, sexy guy, because we hadn't done that before in a movie. And I was like, well, okay, I can see how that could work. And he had he would always talk about like the various.
I think they got a pretty good villain in it, to be honest.
Yeah, I would say because this is the point where every villain, including this movie, but going forward, every Star Trek movie villain is your Khan ripoff guy. It's what I was talking about last week, how Ruafo in Insurrection was the last original Trek villain. Everything after Insurrection, it's a guy who's really angry about a specific thing from the past, and he's out for revenge. That's his chief motivation. And out of the one we get here, and in the 3 Kelvin movies, well, I think it's criminal to do that kind of the same story 4 consecutive times. I'll say that Tom Hardy's Shinzon is the best of the 4.
I just wanted to say, Peter Weller's guy is ostensibly also the villain in Star Trek Into Darkness, and he does at least have a Warhawk motivation instead of revenge.
But Khan is the primary villain in that movie, who goes to get revenge against Marcus. We'll talk about that when we talk about that.
Yeah.
But when I say a villain, I mean like the guy you put on the poster.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I was just nitpicking.
But yeah, so John Logan said like a bunch of good things going into this movie, and I actually think he wrote a better movie than what we see here. There are several deleted scenes that would have really added to this.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Now, Rick Berman wanted this movie to be as short as possible, and he kept telling them, trim it down more, trim it down more. This was coming out into theaters at the same time as some weird little indie project from New Zealand called like the Dual Towers or something. I think it was about like magic elves or something like that. Some pretty like forgettable movie.
Sounds like Kroll to me.
Yeah, it was a 3-hour long follow up to the Fellowship of the Rings, the Two Towers. So Rick Berman's thinking was, okay, this new Lord of the Rings movie is going to be really popular. Everyone and their mom are going to go to the theaters to see it, but because it's 3 hours long, there's not going to be that many screenings. So maybe if the Two Towers are sold out and we have a short movie,
we'll get their cast-offs.
Yeah, there will be so many more screenings of Star Trek Nemesis that we'll get the people who couldn't get into the Two Towers. It wasn't the best idea.
It's a really sad kind of marketing.
Yes.
Rick Berman, I think he gets beat up a lot. I think people shit on him a bit too much. He was overseeing the golden era of Star Trek. He had 3 of the 4 shows he was involved with ran for 7 seasons.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. And he got a lot of good Star Trek made. However, he's definitely more of a TV guy than a movie guy. I think that the 4 Next Generation movies, everyone will agree they're not as good as the Star Trek shows were in the Berman era.
Yeah.
And he didn't have as good of a...
He also built them like TV shows. He'd have them write the script, then he'd bring in a director to direct it, and whereas movies are traditionally, the director is involved with the whole creation process. And that's how they did the original movies, at least Star Trek 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, where all the director was involved from day one.
Which is funny because Harv Bennett was also a TV guy.
Yeah.
But he had just like the better eye for what makes a good movie.
Yeah, he knew what parts to keep from the movie process and what parts to keep from the TV process. Yeah, so Berman made less ideal choices, I think.
So,
are we ready for our Transwarp summary?
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and refresh everyone on the events of Star Trek Nemesis. We will quickly run through the movie in what we call the Transwarp summary. Congratulations to Riker and Troy. The happy couple are finally tying the knot, and Data sings Blue Skies at the wedding reception. After a ceremony on Earth, the Enterprise takes off to transport them to a second wedding on the Counselor's home world of Beta Z. But along the way, the Enterprise detects a positronic signature similar to Data's. They change course and proceed to the planet Caloris, and find disassembled pieces of Data's doppelganger, a prototype android called B4. After a stupid and pointless Mad Max chase scene in the desert, we get back to the ship, and B4 is reassembled. B4 is not as advanced of a machine as Data, and appears to be a simpleton. Data tries to copy his memory patterns into B4 to beef up his intelligence, but it seems to have no effect. Now to get back to the wedding on Betazoid. But hold on, we got a cameo from now Admiral Catherine Janeway. The former Voyager captain orders Picard to go check out Romulus. A new Romulan praetor has taken over the Romulan Star Empire, and he's from Romulus's sister planet Remus. The Remans are a race of mutated Romulans who live in the dark and are basically treated as cannon fodder by the Romulan military. They are also exploited as slave labor in the dilithium mines. Somehow a Reman has taken over the Empire, though, so the Enterprise zips over to Romulus. They encounter an intimidating boss-level ship, the Scimitar, commanded by the Reman leader, Praetor Shinzon. Except Shinzon is actually a human. And not just any human, but a clone of Jean-Luc Picard. Only he's a few decades younger than the captain we know. He explains that he was a part of a discontinued Romulan plot to make a copy of Picard who could serve as a Romulan operative and replace him. But when the plan was axed, poor little Shinzon was banished to the mines of Remus. Now he and his Reman brothers are running the show. They pulled off a coup and took over the Senate thanks to the backing of the Romulan military. And this fake Picard is a real dick. He actually plans on going to war with the Federation and destroying Earth with his ship's deadly Thalaron radiation weapon. But because of the cloning process used to create him, his body has started breaking down. He needs Picard's blood. Like, all of Picard's blood, or he'll die soon. He captures Picard, but Data is able to rescue his captain before the procedure can be performed. The Enterprise hauls ass back towards the Federation, but is attacked by the Scimitar, and we get a pretty cool space battle that leaves both ships wrecked after Picard rams the Scimitar with the Enterprise. Shinzon, bitter towards Picard and dying without the genetic procedure from Picard's blood, arms the Thalaron weapon, which will kill everyone on the Enterprise. Picard beams over to the Scimitar to stop the weapon from detonating, and because this is a TNG movie, he has to become Hollywood action captain. Picard bursts onto the Reman bridge and shoots guys left and right, even beating one poor Reman with his phaser rifle. Action Captain Picard makes his way to the Thalaron weapon, but gets in a knife fight with his clone. Luckily, Picard is able to best the copy of his younger self, but watching a version of himself die takes a toll on him. Picard stands there stunned as the weapon is about to detonate. But Data comes to the captain's rescue and beams Picard back to the Enterprise. Data shoots his phaser at the Thalaron weapon and destroys it in a massive explosion that also results in the destruction of the Scimitar and, sadly, Data himself. It is somber on the Enterprise. The crew miss their fallen comrade, but life goes on. Riker and Troy transfer to the USS Titan, the Enterprise undergoes repairs in dry dock, and Picard tries to explain the death of Data to his slow, childlike brother B4. B4 doesn't seem to fully understand what exactly Picard is saying, but as the captain leaves the room, he notices B4 starts casually singing some of the words to Blue Skies, Data's song from the reception at the beginning of the movie. And on that optimistic note, the movie comes to an end, and the Next Generation era of movies comes to a close.
I kind of like the ending of it, to be honest.
It's weird that it's kind of never followed up on.
Yeah,
and all the years since this movie.
It's been followed up in the novels extensively.
Yeah, and the comics, and
novels, comics, and MMOs.
But in the video game.
But
nothing that
Picard is coming, and it's going to follow up on it.
Yeah, you would think they would need to address this in the show somehow.
Yes. I hope that Data is downloaded as a computer's AI, and Brent Spiner does the voice, but needn't appear in it.
That is what I'm hoping for, too.
There we go. What if it's B4 downloaded? And it's just like, they're like, B4, give me an assessment of the situation, and he's like, what's a situation?
So we'll just go on like a little B4 tangent, just because I think some people might be interested on what happens after this in some of the expanded universe material. In the comics, there's the Star Trek Countdown comic that sets up the next movie, Star Trek 09, and B4 just turns into Data. He has Data's memories, he becomes Data, he gets promoted to captain and eventually becomes captain of the Enterprise.
It's more or less what I sort of expected them to do with him.
Yeah, and that would have been kind of like their Star Trek 3, this is how we get Spock back, except with Data. Hit the reset button, go back to the status quo type of approach.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
though without an emotion chip. Because presumably the chip got blown up.
Or because he has the ability to remove it, he might have left it. He could have given it to Geordi and been like, if B4...
Give this to B4? Yeah, no, I kind of like that.
If B4 ever gets mature enough, give this to him.
Yeah.
But...
I like that.
In the novels...
now I want that scene, man. I want that scene in the movie.
Well, if it had been in there, Rick Berman would have ordered it cut from the movie.
Yeah, fuck Rick Berman.
They could get the people who couldn't get into the Two Towers. But in the books, they take a rather different approach. The author, David Mack, didn't like that type of idea because he didn't want to kill B4 so Data can live. So he actually...
It's a Tuvix situation.
Yeah, he has an other android body, I think, is discovered, and so B4's data memories can be dumped into this empty case and become a new Data.
Is it a soon android body, a B3
yes.
or something?
And part of I think David Mack's arc, I haven't read this book, so I could.
They could have just got lore. He's sitting on a shelf, wipe his brain, and put data in there.
He's all taken apart.
Yeah, I know.
Also, wiping his brain does just bring up the problem again. Bad person, but it's still killing him if you wipe it.
Well, they executed Lore in the show. They death penalty'd him.
Yeah.
But
he was a jerk.
In the David Mack book, it was actually Dr. Soong's consciousness was still out there somewhere, and that all the androids he had built, it was all leading up to him eventually creating a perfect android body for himself. And Data and Lore and B4, they're all kind of experiments to get to this point. But I don't know. I've never read the book, and I might have gotten a lot of that wrong. If so, correct me and let me know. And also, remind me what book that is. But I think the video games it's something even different than that. But Data comes back in Star Trek Online as well.
Yeah, honestly, it makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of too good a character to kill off in a sort of mediocre movie. Or
not if you've got books to sell and comics to sell. You can't kill that guy.
Well, also, but I, on a sort of dramatic level, in the same way that people were dissatisfied with Kirk's death, Data's death isn't great.
Data's death is terrible. And I say this as somebody who thinks this is the best Next Generation movie, who really loves most of this movie. I really love
Wait, this is your favorite Next Generation movie?
Yes.
Interesting.
I didn't realize that till I just rewatched them for these podcasts, and I was like, wow, this is definitely the best.
I think
but
it was
Data's death is so terrible that a friend of mine honestly didn't think he was dead. He was like, oh, well, whatever. He's going to pop up somehow. Yeah, kind of last minute.
Doesn't feel real.
Yeah, there's got to be an escape pod or something. Oh, they're doing a funeral. Oh, they're back in Earth. He's actually... Oh, wow, that was lame. So, and I have to kind of agree. There's no emotional impact. It's handled so tritely.
Actually, I think the follow up to it, I think their toast to him and stuff, I kind of like.
The toast is okay.
It's rushed.
The killing of him is rushed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they should have built it up a little bit more, and they should have had more of a reaction to it, and enough to where you can have the characters all feel sad, but then you have enough distance between that, and then have a happier ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everything after the climax of this movie, after that explosion, I think everything is way too rushed there.
No, but shall we rewind for a minute and get back to the jump to the beginning? I just want to quick mention something about the beginning. Is I noticed I always notice Jerry Goldsmith's music. He always does a great job.
This is a great soundtrack.
And there's a cool thing that happens in this where they're doing kind of the opening music before they build up to what would traditionally be the dun 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 classic next gen theme. Mm-hmm. They do it starts to do that, and then it kind of fades into this kind of martial, kind of serious sound.
Yeah, his Romulan music.
As the camera flies down and we see the Romulan Senate and all that, which looks really cool.
Trivia note. The guy I sat next to for much of my for the first few years at high school and was one of the Romulans in that Senate. He contacted me out of the blue after years saying, Brian, I'm in a Star Trek movie. And that was my big spoiler, was he had photos of him in the makeup and photos they did decayed, burnt up, crispy makeup that they showed photos of. Yeah. And they said, we all die. We're in the Senate. And then this radiation bomb goes off and we all die. And that was my first real information at all about Star Trek
That's
Nemesis.
Very cool, but spoiler warning.
Yes. No, I was fine with that. I was just so excited. I know somebody who's in Star Trek.
Yeah, that's pretty hardcore. You get to be a Romulan that get nuked.
Yeah. He later found his wig for sale on eBay with his name written on the inside of it.
I would like the producers of Discovery and Picard show to know that I will happily die on any of their shows.
Oh, yes. So
you need to Telluride, I'm your man.
I would be happy to see Dave die. But what you were talking about with the opening of this movie, this was kind of weird at the time because we had 9 previous Star Trek movies. Each one opens with the big celebratory fanfare, long drawn out opening credit sequence. But this is the first time where it's no, all you get is a title card, and then boom, we're cutting straight to some action.
Yeah.
So that was kind of shocking to me in the theater watching this.
Yeah, and it was kind of scary music and stuff, and it took over from the good guy music. So you're oh, this is thematically, it suggests there is going to be this triumph of villainy.
Yeah, it does kind of draw your attention, and that was a cool shot of the Romulan Senate building that we had seen a little bit on The Next Generation. Good continuity that they made it the same structure, or at least very similar.
Similar-ish, but yeah.
And it was,
it looked theatrical. This did not look like a TV set at all.
Yeah.
Right.
It looks like an expensive film.
It does.
Yes.
There's some really amazing action set pieces in it.
Yeah.
I had a question about this stuff there. I mean, so the Romulan Senate meets their gory end, and we find out about the Remans, which this introduced Remans as a concept.
Which I was so happy to finally find out what was that other planet that's on like the Romulan logo with the bird. It's got like the two planets and its feet.
Yeah.
And they had like the map.
Right there.
They had like the map on TOS and Balance of Terror. Where it was actually spelled like ROMI, like Romi.
Yeah.
But
they said Romulus and Remus.
Yeah.
I think I liked what they ended up doing, but I thought it was kind of cheap to just suddenly throw out a whole other cast of Romulans that we had never seen before. Felt a little bit like undeserved world building for them.
I guess it was weird that you don't see them in Unification or hear them mentioned in Unification. On the other hand, it's nice to see there's something more to the Romulan Empire than just Romulans.
Yeah, the Romulans had always been kind of mysterious and not as fleshed out as like Klingons or Cardassians at this point.
Yeah.
So it was cool to, I think, add something more to the Romulan lore. I never had a problem with them.
It certainly fits their kind of. What would you call
villainy?
Their particular brand of empire building villainy.
Yeah, that they have like a slave class in their society.
And I even kind of like the idea of the what do they call it? A tidally locked planet where there's like one side always facing the sun that's like scorched, and the other side that's always nighttime.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting to play these up as almost like a sort of a refugee slave caste rising up, but then also in other parts of the movie. They play them up as scary monsters to be shot.
I kind of don't like the Reman design. I think it's a little too extreme.
You know what they look like? They look like tall versions of Simon Pegg's buddy from the Kelvinverse. What are those?
Keenser?
They look like tall.
They
look like Keenser.
There's a vibe.
Yes.
There's a vibe.
They were going for
They're tall Keensers.
They were going for Nosferatu. And that's what they were telling us.
It looks like Nosferatu too.
Before I ever saw one, I was like reading and interviews and stuff.
Keenser, yes.
They were going with basically like a Nosferatu version of like a Vulcan or a Romulan.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, okay, so it's going to be like a bald white guy with pointy Vulcan ears.
They definitely have the Nosferatu teeth and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think they didn't need that elaborate of a design to where they do look kind of despicable.
I will say Stuart Baird over-designs some stuff in this film.
Yeah. I'm sure that was Stuart Baird telling Michael Westmore just like make it look more monstrous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't to me look like descendants of the planet Vulcan.
Well, in my headcanon, what they are is they were the natives of Remus, who were the first planet conquered by the Romulans after the Romulans came to Romulus, and they became like foundational to the whole social structure going forward.
That's what a lot of people, I think, interpreted the movie as. But the idea,
so you're talking about like literally a different species, not some devolved version.
Well, I also assume there's been perhaps some interbreeding. Certainly, in the expanded universes, Romulans are very rapey, and even somewhat in the TV show as well. So
see Tasha Yar for more.
So the idea that the Romulan they might actually have some in my headcanon, in my role playing game, the original species is extinct, and all of them are descendants of rather bad Romulan relationships.
Yeah. But as a plot device, they add something. They add a new level to, they add a strata, a different caste system for the Romulans, and they bring up some. It's an interesting balance of power.
Yeah, and there's part of you that kind of wants the Remans to win.
Sure.
And
we had seen Romulans be such big dicks for decades at this point.
So. It just turns out that their winning would also mean destroying Earth eventually.
Yes.
We get the wedding reception and Picard giving a speech at the reception. So I guess Picard, is the best man.
Yes.
That's who traditionally gives a speech at the reception. And it is fun to see like all the TNG people. They're like happy together, celebrate. Actually,
even
had, like,
briefly, 1 second you see Wesley.
Yes.
Yeah, and he actually had a scene in there where he talks a little bit about like his presence and that he's I guess rejoined Starfleet. He's going to be working in engineering on Riker's new ship, the USS Titan. But Rick Berman had all that cut out of the movie.
Yes.
There's also a sequence here where Data and Picard have a conversation about life is about changes.
That's the one that I've hurts the most.
Yes, that I think would have been so essential to making this movie work.
Was it filmed?
Yeah.
Like, is it shown in... Have y'all seen it, the scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on the deleted scenes.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
No, it's worth looking at. There's some cool deleted scenes in there.
Especially like Picard coming off of Star Trek Generations, which I'm not a huge fan of that movie, but that was cool that like that's something like he kind of learns in there. So it'd be interesting seeing him kind of like teaching this to Data, as he's always kind of mentored Data and helped him on his quest to become more human. But yeah, things in life are going to change, in that you accept that and you cherish the moments while you have them, and it ties into Riker getting married, him and Troy leaving the ship because he's going to be captain of the Titan, and the eventual death of Data in this movie.
Big change.
Yeah, and some of the issues between Shinzon and Picard and the nature versus nurture stuff are also set up in that scene, so it's really painful to lose that one. I actually watched it before I watched the movies.
I love Picard's best man speech. I feel like it hits all the right notes.
Yes.
He's snarky a little bit and kind of, but in that sort of priggish Picard way.
And he makes it all about him.
He does a little bit.
A little?
He does.
John Logan, clearly a fan of the show, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, he gets the characters.
Yes.
But he also makes it, in the end he brings it home and he sells it with to their wedding, he tells them make it so, and it's like really sweet. And Troy, who is like kind of starts to cry, I think, a little bit, and in a clearly real.
And they got that performance because Marina and Patrick are super good friends in real life.
So yeah, she probably really felt it while he was saying it. So yeah, like I love that scene, and I actually like everything that follows it. I like Data's song.
Data's song is wonderful. I was so upset when that wasn't on the original soundtrack. So I had to go buy the extended soundtrack to get that song.
It is weird in 2019 to watch this and how Data totally misuses the term transgender.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen in transgendered species, he says.
Yeah.
It's still, at the time, it felt like a complete sort of joke, just like, oh, it's so wacky in Star Trek.
Well, it's not like... What he should have said was like in like non-gendered species.
Yeah.
Right.
Like transgender means like to transform from one gender to another. In 2002, I don't think I knew what transgender meant. Yeah. I knew it was a thing, but
clearly the writers
exactly
did not either.
Yeah, and neither did John. I think most people in 2002 weren't familiar with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they
got to give them points for trying.
I guess I think it was more of just like we need to say something that's like kind of funny because Data has to always be like slightly comical,
right?
Especially when he's trying to do something very human, like act normal at a wedding. Of course, Data's gonna have like a quirkiness to it.
Yeah.
But they're drinking the Picard wine, so I guess someone's working at the vineyard. Although it probably has like a year on there from like a older year. So
this might have been prepared by my dead nephew.
I love seeing Guinan and Wesley here, but I do wish that they would have tried to get Dr. Pulaski in here, or maybe like the guy who played Riker's dad. Just so we could have had, I kind of feel like Riker's dad should have been there anyways. But...
Yeah, Riker's dad, they should have certainly tried for. I mean, and I don't care. Luxana should have been there too.
Yes. Even though, like she's on Beta Z getting that wedding ready, but I would have loved to see
the rest of them are going to be at both weddings.
I would have loved to have seen her in one of the movies.
For the movie's tight continuity, like, don't they have to go directly from here to Romulus? And then they would have to be like, well, what's the Loxana doing? Why isn't Riker's dad advising him?
No. You could just have it to where she's just like, okay, well, I gotta get on my ship to go to Beta Z, get everything ready for you. Like, Jean-Luc, can't wait to see you at the wedding. And then and she just leaves.
Yes. Yeah.
And they could have had like all of the like the TNG cast here with, if they could have got Denise Crosby back in the movie. If instead of creating the character Commander Denatra, they just brought back Sella from the TV show. She would have fit very easily into here, and you could have given all of Dinatra's lines to her.
Well, that
would be a bit of a personality rewrite, but I guess I could see it. I could see it. You could make it work.
Sinatra goes from being the person who actually initiates initiates the murder of the council, right?
Yeah.
No, that was a different senator.
Was it?
Okay. We just see the beginning.
You see her in one other scene, but she's just standing there.
Okay.
But yeah.
Anyway, I understand why they didn't do any of that, though, because when you're making a movie, every second counts, and they just tightened it up.
Yeah.
So we only saw...
doesn't have...
No, but they only show characters we care about, and that the lay audience might have seen. Lay audience doesn't care even about Loaxana.
Do they care about Dinatra?
Her
Dinatra doesn't need an explanation.
Neither does
she. Serves a major purpose at the end.
A blonde Romulan that all of them are like, oh, you again, is going to need an explanation.
All you gotta do is just be like, I'm half human. My mother knew Picard. That's all you gotta say. That's not gonna eat up any more screen time. And
are we still talking about guests at the wedding?
No, she would have replaced Dinatra. But I'm just saying that I reject the idea that they couldn't have fit that in there.
I would have loved it as a fan. I can see why, from the point of view of making a movie to appeal to large numbers of people, that it was not done.
Denise Crosby wanted to be in the movie, and they said, we don't have a role for you, which is bullshit, because they did. It was called Dinatra.
Yeah. Dinatra was also very hot.
Well, she's played by Dinah Myers, I think is the name of the actress, who played Barbara Gordon / Oracle in the Birds of Prey TV show.
I didn't even notice that while I was watching it. That's crazy. She was also notably, what's her name in Starship Troopers?
Who?
She was in Starship Troopers, one of the troopers.
She was Johnny Rico's girlfriend after he realized Denise Richards was not for him. I forget what her character's name is.
The redhead?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. If anybody wants to go see her naked, you can go watch Starship Troopers for the shower scene.
I would never do that.
Anyway, that's crazy. I didn't know it was Dina Myers then.
So, but yeah, it would have been cool. As a fan, I would have
liked it. As a generation's final journey or whatever they were putting on the posters and stuff for the movie. Yeah. Which is another kind of frustration of this movie, is that it is the last Next Generation movie. But it also tries to be the last, but it also tries to leave the door open for more. And the idea behind that is John Logan, if this movie had succeeded at the box office and deemed sequel-worthy, he had a plan for another movie that it wouldn't have been a TNG crew movie. It would have been kind of like an all-stars movie. He'd have some TNG people, some Voyager people, some DS9 people, which I think would make a lot of sense from a production standpoint, because some of these TNG actors might be getting a little pricey at this point. It might be hard to get Patrick Stewart to come back. He's off doing these X-Men movies that are doing gangbuster at the box office. But we could probably get some DS9 people or some Voyager people that'll still draw in a lot of fans. And even though those shows didn't have as huge of a fan base as TNG, you still have some TNG people there to keep the TNG fans interested. Yeah. And of course, this movie didn't perform well enough that we ever got that movie. I'm curious how it would have turned out, though. I
would love to know a synopsis of that other film. I would love to hear that. So,
let's talk about the craziness when they go dune buggy driving in search of data parts.
Yeah. I got to mention Worf. He shows up there, and how there's zero explanation of why Worf is back in Starfleet while he's serving on the Enterprise.
I just assumed that he's wearing a Starfleet uniform at the wedding because it's his Starfleet crew.
Do we ever see people who've resigned from Starfleet wearing the uniforms again? Like McCoy in Encounter at Farpoint.
McCoy's a bit different. McCoy's relationship to the military is a little different than Worf's relationship to the military.
If Worf is this, at the end of DS9, he becomes a Klingon. Well, he becomes a Federation ambassador to the Klingon Empire, but you'd think he'd be dressed like a Klingon diplomat.
I have no trouble saying, these are my Starfleet buddies, I'm going to put my old Starfleet uniform
maybe
on.
For his dress uniform, but when he's just hanging out on the ship, cruising to Beta Z, why does he not only get dressed in his standard day-to-day duty uniform, but he's also working on the bridge and going down on a wave mission with the captain?
I don't think Picard gives a shit. He's like, Worf, you're here. Let's go. And Worf's like, sure.
You're always going to want to have Worf in a dangerous situation.
But there is a cut scene, of course, because they cut all the important stuff out of this movie, where Worf simply says, like, well, the life of a diplomat wasn't for me. And so he, like, re-enlisted.
See, I didn't like that. I'm glad that scene either was cut, because now I can headcanon that he's still the ambassador.
I think your explanation doesn't work either, though, because I think it's kind of apparent that he is, like serving in Starfleet in this movie.
I think he's serving Picard in this movie, which is a bit different.
I think the books handle it the best, where they establish that he did re-enlist, and he was going to be Riker's first officer on the Titan. That's why he's still wearing a red uniform. He's still in command. And because of that, he ends up in the books after this movie deciding to stay on the Enterprise. And so then, like, Worf becomes number one.
Yeah.
And some of the Enterprise E books set after this movie.
So Worf can be lame all the time again and not have to be cool like he was on DS9.
Yeah, and they do kind of make Worf lame in this movie, where he has, like, the massive hangover from the Romulan ill, which Geordi says that it's illegal, even though DS9 had shown it was legalized.
That was 4 years ago. Things
maybe
could have
got
changed.
illegal
Yeah, clearly the relationship between the Romulans and the Federation is degenerated.
There's a little nitpick about Worf being their father.
Well, because I feel like that's something that you need to address in the movie and not just, like, brush over.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could have, but I think it's minor.
The addressment that they were going... given that I hated the address that they were going to do that they filmed and then deleted, I'm kind of okay with them not addressing it, because I now know what they were going to do, and that's stupid. So, I prefer to just make up my own solution than have theirs.
But yeah, anyways, we get to the dumb dune buggy chase on
I
the
like
planet.
it as a set piece,
Why the
but
fuck
it has nothing to do with anything. And in a movie where we're trying to cut it, why don't we cut this? This could be cut.
Why the fuck does Data have safety goggles?
Because he's actually Brent Spiner.
Yeah.
And they don't want to CGI the goggles out on all those scenes.
I didn't notice that he had goggles on.
Well, that's always bugged me.
Because Brent Spiner's eyes are not as strong as Data's eyes. That's a simple... I'm sure it's just a simple safety thing that they couldn't be in that open-top, gravel-flying dune buggy.
I know that's why they did it, but it looks dumb.
What are you going to do?
The dune buggy looks dumb.
You can't have Data... You can't leave Data on the...
That doesn't feel like Star Trek. When you have, like rubber tires with air in them on a Starfleet vehicle.
I thought it was fun.
Why, if you have a shuttlecraft, why do you need that?
Pointless.
You could have driven a shuttlecraft all around on that planet.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is the only thing that... I lost my train of thought. The only thing that really bugs me about that, because I think the basic thing of the positronic waves and mystery and all that stuff and finding the body parts is a cool and intriguing scene. It just works on a dramatic level, and finding, the weird parts and stuff is cool, although Worf, once again, is the butt of the joke because he gets scared by a hand grabbing him.
Yes.
But in the end, they have to hightail it out of there because the natives show up and they just start killing them and driving off. We don't really know anything about these aliens at all, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a violation of the Prime Directive.
It's kind of odd there's a Class M planet that close to the neutral zone that has not been charted and explored.
Well, maybe it's because these guys... I'm just going to, for our purposes, say that they shoot up anybody down there and they didn't... Picard, we just didn't hear the part of the briefing where they said this is super dangerous, everybody knows these guys are bastards.
But because of the scene in this movie, I do always refer to driving a vehicle as piloting the vehicle. when Data says that the captain needs to concentrate to pilot the vehicle.
My favorite trivia about that scene is the seats that Data and Picard are in are properly suspended seats in a real rig that they've dressed up to look spacey. They just bolted a seat to the back bed for Michael Dorn for Worf.
He looks uncomfortable.
And it has no suspension, no springs, nothing. So every bump they go over, he's like, bam, whereas everyone else has nice springy seats.
That's terrible.
And he was, hated it.
But so they recover his parts, which we will later learn is a setup from Shinzon, a lure that they could not resist.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, this is me being dumb. Did B4 truly exist, or did they create B4 purely as a lure?
No, he always existed.
Okay. They presumably found him, broke him up into pieces, and just scattered the parts.
And they actually establish in Next Generation that before Data was built, Dr. Soong had built 4 other android bodies.
So it should have been B1, B2, B3, Lore, and Data. But we have a 4.
Right. Well, it makes a pun.
Because they talk about like Dr. Soong's love for whimsical names and how he thought it'd be cool to name the prototype B4.
Yes.
Because he's B4, the final product.
Earlier drafts of the script had B9.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be benign.
Yes.
But they actually couldn't use B9 because it was like copywritten for something.
Oh, I think that's the robot from Lost in Space or something.
Well, whatever it was. And I don't even know if it was a legal issue. It might have just been because he didn't want it to be confused with something else. But they ended up with B4, which actually works better.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we get that Admiral Janeway cameo.
Yeah.
So yeah, spoilers for Star Trek Voyager. She gets back to Earth and gets promoted.
I like seeing her. There's nothing that much to the scene, but it provides some continuity with the rest of the series.
No, they originally wanted Jerry Ryan to be some type of like Starfleet specialist who lets Picard know of like this troubling event going on in the neutral zone and gives him the assignment. Simply because 7 of 9 was such an extremely popular character coming off of Voyager. However, she was busy working on she was on like some TV show where she played a teacher. Like
she was on Boston Public.
Boston Public.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the William Shatner show Boston Legal.
Yep.
But and at one point they wanted her to have a much bigger role in the movie. And when Marina Sirtis has told this story recently how in negotiations for this, and keep in mind that with each movie these actors, much like the TOS people, they would ask for more and more money. And
they said they actually took a pay cut for Nemesis.
Yeah. And that was a big point of contention for some of the actors during negotiations. And Marina Sirtis at one point told them, "I'm not going to do the movie for this amount." And they said, "Well, we don't have a problem with dropping you from the movie completely. We can get Jerry Ryan. Everyone loves 7 of 9, and we can just have 7 of 9 in the movie." And Marina Sirtis' response to that is actually like pretty brilliant negotiations, but she said like, "There's no way Jerry Ryan would do it for that price either."
That's funny.
But it is hard to see Commander Riker marrying Jerry Ryan, and that would have changed things
it's pretty horrible.
dramatically.
Is the notion that like we will take one woman out of Star Trek and replace her with another woman because all women are basically the same.
They're all interchangeable.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, that is horrible.
Yeah, well, Counselor Troy and 7 of 9 are basically the same character.
That'll lead
it's
us
like
shortly.
Tuvok and Spock, right?
That'll lead us shortly to some other bad stuff with Troy. But let's move on back to the ship where they get to checking out B4 and all that stuff.
Yeah, and we do get the mission from Janeway to go to Romulus, where we meet the Viceroy, played by Ron Perlman. Mm-hmm. You'll never know it's Ron Perlman because he's completely covered in prosthetics, like Ron Perlman often is, although not so much anymore.
Yeah, he became famous for his own bizarre face, and not makeup bizarre face.
But I guess he does a good job as the Viceroy. I mean, that's like not a very deep character at all.
Yeah, there's not a ton to him. He's loyal.
But then we get the cool scene where we're introduced to Tom Hardy's Shinzon.
It's a pretty great introduction, I think. He's instantly commanding. He has that sort of serial killer, predatory intelligence, like a movie serial killer, like Lecter style.
Yeah, for an actor that age and experience level, he totally nails what he needs to do. And
I was thinking he came across as so confident.
Yeah,
it's almost kind of I hate to say Hannibal Lecter because everyone compares villains to Hannibal Lecter. But he kind of comes off as like that Hannibal Lecter vibe of like that total confidence.
Yeah, that's what I just said a minute ago.
You said Hannibal Lecter?
No, I said total confidence. Or did you say Hannibal?
Yeah, I said serial killer vibe, and then I think I said Lecter somewhere in there.
Oh, okay.
But yes, I agree obviously with you. I think that's a fair comparison because he has the same sort of mania, and Lecter has a certain sort of like hyper-confident articulation and like command over people. And so the same way that Shinzon walks around and he's like, he knows who everybody is, he knows their history, they don't know shit about him yet. he's very commanding in the scene.
And very thirsty for a human woman. Or a human-looking woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Half-human woman. Close enough.
He just told Denadra, like, I'll kill you if you ever touch me again.
Now I have this mental image of him chasing Sella around.
I didn't...
Well, that's where they could have used Sella, where she could have been like I'm half human. And then he could have, like, rejected her and be like, you're also half Romulan, and I hate Romulans.
Right.
But
Betazoids,
y'all think that she couldn't have fit in this movie, so...
Yeah.
I said she could. I just think I can see why they didn't choose to put her in there. So.
But he explains that he had the... what was it? The Shalaft syndrome?
Shalaft or something.
Which I'm thinking is made up, but he had, like...
Actually, I want to say I read that it is real, and... It's not genetic, it's environmental, so it was used, it was a bad choice.
Well, maybe...
was my recollection. I could be misremembering that.
It might actually be genetic, and we just haven't figured that out yet. But by the 24th century, we will. We'll find
I like that.
We'll find that gene.
Headcanon achieved.
What do they say? Is it like an audio thing? Like sounds make you can't deal with sounds?
He basically was like using this to prove to Picard that
they were linked. Yeah, he was the clone.
So Picard had that Shalaft syndrome, and he also gets the all good things Aromatic syndrome.
Okay. And he's got like a bad heart too.
Oh, he's got like the Robo heart.
Yeah.
Well, that was because a knife went through.
Yeah, that was
not genetic.
Yeah,
I'm just saying there's a lot going wrong with this guy. But in the wild ways, there's a lot going right with him.
And his hair fell out.
That's true. I was thinking there's this little Tom Hardy thing that what do you call it? The Shinzon's childhood and the child thrown in the mines and forced to survive is a little bit of a mirror of Bane's childhood on Santa Prisca.
Oh yeah, especially like being in the darkness with how they describe it in the movie.
They should get Tom Hardy to play Bane.
Yeah, wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, Christopher Nolan was clearly watching this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, he pulls out that knife to like cut his hand and like give him the blood. And I think this is like Stuart Baird like not knowing the characters. When Tom Hardy pulls out the knife and you see like Data and Riker like both like react to like kind of like protect the captain, and Worf just stands there like watching, like not giving a shit. Like
Worf is like he's probably gonna cut himself. That's what I would do.
Klingons pull knives out all the time. We'd all be dead if we went nuts whenever a Klingon pulled a knife.
Am I right? His coup was backed by the military because they wanted to fight with the Federation, so they were willing to join up with a persecuted ethnic minority.
Yes.
To do it.
Who happened to have a super weapon that could make it happen.
I guess, that was enough for him. Hey, I mean, to be fair, Shinzon's a pretty convincing guy. I could see it.
And they explained that he led some campaigns during the Dominion War,
like all wins.
Yeah,
right.
And
he was.
Yeah. I think some of the novels have actually like fleshed out some of that stuff
a little bit. Yeah, not as much as I would like, but I would love to read a Shinzon during the Dominion War novel.
I think that's kind of cool. I think there's like one short story where Shinzon's been like captured by the Dominion, and he's trying to like fight some Jem'Hadar hardasses that think they can like kill this prisoner. But then, like, every time someone's about to have, like, a kill shot on Shinzon, his Remans are so loyal to him that one of them will, like, run up and, like, take the hit. and Shinzon's able to defeat the Jem'Hadar.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. For, like, a megalomaniac leader who thinks he's, like this really righteous leader of his people, but he's actually just, like, getting them killed left and right. But he honestly thinks it's the right thing to do.
That's good villainy. Yeah. I gotta say.
Yeah, and I have no problem with Tom Hardy as Shinzon. I think that's one of the strongest parts of a somewhat weak movie. But this is also where where Dr. Crusher, who gets so much to do in these movies, confirms that Shinzon is indeed the clone of Picard. I think she does that. She has a comment about like B4's eyes not looking quite like Data's. And then she also has a line about like how deadly Thalaron radiation is in this movie. I think that's all she does is say like those three things.
I mean, that's kind of important stuff. Do y'all? So once Shinzon and Picard begin their kind of conversation and back and forth.
Yeah, the dinner scene.
I love the dinner scene.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
These two actors work well together.
They do.
I also enjoy the rough draft of the dinner scene that you can find that's been released, which was a practice using an old script for testing out Tom Hardy, and it's very different dialogue, but also very interesting.
Yeah, and
this is a filmed scene.
Yes,
that's cool.
James Marsters, who played Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, also auditioned for Shinzon, and he said he totally botched that scene. But he was actually like playing off of like Patrick Stewart in this audition, and he knew like he wasn't gonna get the job, and he totally dropped the ball on it. And I know James Marsters. I've actually met him at like fan conventions. He's a big Trekkie, so I know like he really wanted to do that.
Ah, man, it's interesting. But that also kind of brings up the nature versus nurture thing, which is a running theme in the movie, and I was just wondering what y'all thought of.
I like it. Every time treatment. Yeah, the action, and then they pull it back and refocus on the theme of the movie.
It has
nature
a versus element.
nurture. And then action, and then they pull it back and remind you that this is all about something. Yeah. And I like that.
Shinzon continually tells Picard that if you had been in my circumstances, you would be where I am now.
Yes.
And Picard is trying to, is occasionally convinced that well, maybe that is true.
Yeah. Picard has to come to terms with that, and then he has to try to fix Shinzon, which he does not succeed at, but he tries. He certainly gives it his all.
Yeah, there's a line in there that's one of my favorite lines in the movie where they've been talking, and he says, nothing would give me greater pleasure than to take your hand in, friendship or something, or in peace.
But he's also, the whole time, he's still, a little suspicious of him.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, they do
Well, Picard knows his own tells. So.
They do a little flippy thing with Data and B4.
Yeah, they're on to B4 hacking the ship.
When I watched it the first time, I hadn't guessed that they would do that. I mean, maybe it seems like the obvious thing to do, but because I was like, oh, they're going to want to have Shinzon, have some sort of victories kind of early on, and this is one of those ones. I like when the characters are smart, though.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And so what that scene proves is that, Data and Picard were not idiots.
Yeah,
yes. I feel like the makers of this movie were idiots right before that, when they have Shinzon and the Viceroy. The Viceroy is bringing Picard down here was a mistake. We don't have time for this. We need to do this procedure soon. Mm-hmm. And so he's basically telling them, okay, we gotta hurry up. We can't be wasting time with this shit. But somehow the two of them still think they have enough time to telepathically gang rape Counselor Troy.
Am I right? That served no purpose other than his own pleasure, right? It was not... Yeah, to get information, there wasn't anything else that they got out of it.
It's we really need to hurry up and do this procedure, but let's just take the time to
Shinzon
psychically assault this woman.
Both wants to explore humanity in the most depraved way possible, and wants to destroy humanity. And you can see he's fighting with those two impulses.
I mean, here's the thing: if he has the impulse to do that, he's not exactly a guy who's thinking in a humane, rational way. Yeah. He might his lust or his desire to exert power overrode his worry about his physical health. Yeah. I can buy that.
I can't.
Bad guys do.
The idea him and that Viceroy being hey buddy, we really need to do this procedure. But he's oh man, why don't we just go sexually assault this woman with your psychic powers?
Data finished.
Okay, I guess we have time for that.
Yeah, B4 hadn't stolen the stuff yet. They couldn't do anything till B4 had stolen the stuff. So they were waiting for that.
Unnecessary rapes in movies come off as pretty offensive.
Something I can
agree with. He gave Troy to go kick his ass afterwards.
She doesn't kick his ass, though. It turns into Riker being I gotta avenge my woman. I gotta avenge my property.
No. Troy using her psychic link with the Kruk. That's his name in the book. The Viceroy.
That's how they get through to the ship.
They would have lost.
It turns into Riker's fight.
That battle.
Fatheree,
and been destroyed without Troy's
You're saying the personal fight had to happen through Riker, and it did, but she did win the ship fight, which is really the important one.
Yes, the one that saved Earth was the battle that Troy won.
I would have let her be the one to defeat the Viceroy. I wouldn't have put that in the movie.
So here's the thing: I think it's a kind of seedy scene. Picard says something afterwards about how her ability to take that, he hopes that she can, she's really valuable if she can continue to do that.
Well, it's not like it's anything new. It's happened to her before on the show,
right? But it's a kind of horrific thing, and I hate that they had Picard
At first,
say...
that's what I thought, but what he's actually saying is, yes, I know you've been traumatized, but I could really use you on the bridge.
Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Okay, it came off a little unclear, and I thought he was saying he expects that to happen more often, and she's really valuable for her ability.
It is not the best written line, but it is
says,
clearly meaning I need you on the bridge to solve the crisis.
He says if you think you can continue to withstand these attacks, or something like that.
If you continue to soldier on, he didn't. It was. You could imply it doesn't necessarily. Listening to it, it sounded to me like what he meant was if you can continue on to do your job, given what has happened to you.
The whole thing is
if you can endure more of these assaults, I need you at my side.
Yeah. So he's clearly saying like he's expecting it to like happen again.
Yeah. Well, what are they going to do? She goes and sits in her quarters and endures more of the assaults there.
What you do is you don't create the situation. It was poor writing. I gave John Logan a lot of credit earlier, but I think this was not good.
I guess I'm okay with bad guys doing bad things and getting kicked in the balls for it, and that's what happens here.
But I feel like they gave the ball kicking to Riker.
No, Troy's the one who destroys the cloaking device and cripples Shinzon's ship through her maneuver. And because she chooses to face her attacker and kick his task telepathically, which is supposed to be what he's good at. So she goes after him on his field and beats him and then uses that to wipe out it and cripple Shinzon's ship.
Then her husband has to like come defend her and be like, I'm going to get revenge because you raped my woman.
They did do both of those things. Yeah. They did do there is the trope of, the man must stand up and protect his woman. The action also kind of drags, I feel like, during some of those scenes and gets a little overly long for Star Trek to be doing that action. But
the telepathic gang rape and the dune buggy chase are two of the biggest reasons why I consider this one of the bad Star Trek movies. But the other stuff,
what I was thinking, by the way, this is kind of creepy, but like it's sort of more of a rape culture thing. So obviously there's Troy's sexual assault. Shinzon tells Picard at some point that, what is it, the Borg said, resistance is futile, which also sounds like a rapey sort of thing. And when Picard referred to the scimitar, he's like, I see, it's a predator. I wonder if they kind of wanted to just put a little bit of low-level rapey vibe to kind of a lot of the bad guys stuff.
I never connected those dots before.
In as much as they were going for a vampire vibe.
Yeah, okay.
That's what they were going for. They want to steal the blood. They look like Nosferatu. They can't go into the light.
And Dracula is a sexual assaulter.
Yes. So in as much as they were going for...
I never realized that.
I never thought of the vampire element. Yeah, but those things definitely tie together.
And then the inside of the ship looks like Space Count Dracula Castle, with all its angles and spikes.
But hey, do y'all think that Thalaron radiation is like the proto-matter?
I actually, in my role-playing game, it is all tied with proto-matter.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, it's not canon at all.
I never connected those dots either. But
it was a made-up a plot device for a made-up weapony kind of thing.
I mean, Star Trek mixes up weird things all the time, which makes sense because they're hundreds of years in the future and they've explored and found all this weird stuff that we don't know about.
Yeah.
It's like if we went back in time 400 years and started talking about like infrared and radiation and microwaves and
which are all connected, but
there's to go back on to something positive when Picard is trying to win over Shinzon to his kind of to try and redeem him. And Shinzon says, well, I'm a mirror of you. Don't you feel drawn to the darkness or whatever? And Picard says, well, you're a mirror of me as well.
Yeah.
And that was one of those bits that I liked.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't want to give up on him.
It's a very Picard-y sort of thing to say. But also a way to use his own logic. It was like he's using, what do you call it, formal logic to sort of oratory devices to try and convince him. He's like, well, if what you say is true, then you are also part of me, or, there's also me and you, and therefore there's hope for you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a good bit of rhetoric.
I
That's
do
what
think
I was trying
they
to
missed a trick, especially given Tom Hardy's acting skills. Mm-hmm. If they had made Shinzon a little more potentially redeemable. He really kind of comes off pretty quickly. You realize, nope, he's just a bad apple. And your average audience goer is going to say, there's no chance of redeeming this guy. Why are you wasting your time, Picard?
Yeah.
And perhaps that would have been a good reason to drop the psycho rape, is because just to show a slightly more redeemable one. Therefore, there's a sense of tension of will Picard get him to turn back or not. And even if he stays ultimately evil, we still get that tension in the movie of whether or not he will flip.
A conversation I would like to have seen would be somebody talking to the Viceroy at some point. It could have been like Riker or anybody talking to them. And them telling him how Shinzon lifted them up and pulled them out of slavery and show it from their perspective so that you can be like, okay, this guy did do some good stuff for them.
Yeah, that would have been good. But
that would have helped too.
Berman would have cut it, but...
Yeah. A alternate thought I had was, what if instead of trying to steal Picard's blood, which perhaps is not the greatest of plot gimmicks, they were trying to steal Picard's memory? The fact that you have a clone allowed them to do some special memory transfer that normally they wouldn't be able to do, and thus they could, in Locutus style, steal all of Picard's knowledge of Starfleet. Then when they try it, what they end up with is Shinzon ends up saying, hey, Picard's right. Now that I have his experiences, fuck being evil, I want to be a good guy. You know, that would have been a very different ending to the movie, and then it's all both of them ganging up on the Kruk.
I would have liked that, too. I would have liked that more than what they did. But John Logan wanted to do his like, angry villain like Khan movie.
Yeah. Well, if we'd had our angry villain all the way up into the end when we suddenly do a left turn and it turns out to be we redeemed the villain, that could have been interesting.
When he has Picard over to the scimitar when he captures him to do like the procedure, that's when we get like that reveal that it's kind of obvious before then. Yeah. But immediately after that, we get some action Captain Picard when him and Data make their escape.
Which is absolutely awesome.
Picard blazes away with 2 guns. There's no more 90s action that you can do. I
also think Stuart Baird, while he might not have been a fan of Star Trek, I think he was clearly a fan of Star Wars, especially Death Star Detention Center blaster battles.
Yeah.
And then they pilot the Scorpion shuttle fighter.
Yeah.
Which apparently... John Eves talked about how he designed a bunch of Starfleet fighters, and at one point there were going to be a bunch of Starfleet fighters fighting those little Scorpion fighters, which I think would have been way too Star Wars-y and would have came off like the Season 2 finale of Star Trek Discovery.
Which was also awesome.
I think they overdid it there.
I don't usually like the big ship battles in Star Trek. I do think they need to happen every once in a while. Wolf 359 and stuff like that.
I like the battle that we get here.
Those are pretty cool. This is one of my favorite Trek battles overall, and it's like something I almost wish that they'd been doing previously with cloaked ships, which is like if you can get a bead on them, have somebody else help you triangulate fire, and the way they film it is super cool. It's constant fading in and out of cloaking.
Yeah.
Like, it super visually works in the same way that the Nebula scene in Wrath of Khan. Every audience member innately understands exactly what's happening in that. You don't need to know tactics deeply, but you get what's going on. And this had the same vibe to it.
No, the final space battle is a great.
And then the other Romulan ships look cool, too.
Yeah, the Valdor class Warbird. Even though, I am kind of a fan of the D-Deridex, I'm glad we got a new Warbird for the movie.
Yeah.
I like, it's a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina, but when the Romulans kind of come to the rescue...
Well, it's not, because they get their asses kicked.
They do help.
They show up.
They buy the good guys the time to do what they need to do.
They show up. They show up and they show how big of a threat the scimitar is by giving it some asses to kick.
Yeah. When people suddenly do a turn for the good and they just pop in, it's a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina. But what I was going to say was that I still like it when it happens. It's a crowd pleaser moment.
Also,
and
it's only Deus Ex Machina if it resolves the situation. They did not resolve it. They got their asses kicked. So.
Yeah. It kept them from getting immediately killed.
Yeah, that would be like Mortal Ex Machina.
I think it would have been just as effective in the movie to general audiences and more effective to fans of the show if it had been Sella teaming up with Picard instead of Dinatra. But we also get the intruders come onto the ship, and Riker and Worf fighting them on more detention center blaster fight type stuff.
Yeah.
Even diving down that chute like they do.
Yeah.
But the space battle outside of the ship, I love that like they're using actual tactics where Shinzon is like, yeah, decloak the aft quarter of the ship and make it look like we're losing our cloak, and then stuff like that. Fighting in the attacking them in the Bison Rift where they're out of communication range. Yeah, it's kind of a cool. Although you would kind of think that the Enterprise would be smart enough not to go in there.
See, my headcanon again is that the Enterprises tend to be the fastest ships out there, right? Is that the Enterprise E was so faster than any Romulan ship, they figured if we leave, they'll never catch us. So there's no chance of us running into a problem because Shinzon will never be able to catch up with us.
He looks so bad when in evil when you see that he's on the view screen, like watching the Enterprise E, like right above it, like waiting for the moment to attack.
Yeah,
and that's that makes him come off as scary and menacing. And then when he does like his monster transformation, it works for me. I can see how some people might think it gets like too over the top, too ridiculous. But and Tom Hardy, he can play like that heightened type of character stuff very well.
I kind of would have dropped the whole "I'm dying right now" thing if I'd been in charge, but yeah, it's not. It doesn't ruin the movie, but I don't feel it as much.
X-Men director Bryan Singer has his cameo in this movie.
Yes.
He is possibly a child molester, though. So let's just...
they were just keeping the theme of assault.
Yes.
Too much.
I know, I shouldn't be too excited, but I like some of those movies he's made.
Yeah, he's done good work.
I wanted to quick, since we've been talking about the ships, I don't know if we actually said, I think the Scimitar is also a very cool-looking ship.
Yes.
Yeah. Very bat-like, and like the contours and dynamics of its particular wings, which still resemble pretty closely the traditional bird of prey design.
And even more closely a Dominion warship.
Yeah, it did have a little bit of a Dominion look.
But it like went through enough like movie redesign that there's some nice elegance, there's a great creepiness to it.
When it's deploying the Thalaron radiation weapon and it like spreads its wings.
Yeah.
Kind of cool.
Super cool. It looks like the... What's the dinosaur that kills Nedry in the Gallimimus or what? No, is that the one? Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Jurassic Park.
Oh. I have
Dinosaurs
no idea.
Nedry.
I have no idea what the name of the dinosaur.
The one that spits poison.
That's the Dilophosaurus.
Oh, yeah. Gallimimus or maybe the small ones? Whatever.
That was in like the second movie.
Whatever, yeah. Anyway, it looks like that thing. It looks like a neck frill spreading. It's got that it's got an animalistic quality, whether it's like a cobra... puffing out its little things.
It's a predator.
Yeah, it's a predator.
They do have to make it all about Earth here, where they say that they're going to come blow up the Earth.
Well, that would be the logical place to do the first strike.
Yeah, no, it does kind of make sense.
It just feels a little cliche.
If you have a nuke and you have an invisible ship that you can go to like any city and you want to attack the United States,
you're going to start with Washington.
You would start with Washington D.C.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about ramming the thing and all of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
when Troy takes the helm, much like in Star Trek Generations, and here's a whole joke about Troy can't drive that we've all heard. But yeah, that's
but
awesome.
it's because Picard says to ram them. I mean,
when they're sending like those text messages back and forth, it actually says like text message on the screen.
Yeah,
it's kind of because in 2002 text messaging was I didn't have a cell phone at the time. It's still kind of like a new concept.
Yeah.
But also, like, on the screen next to that, it says 47.
Well, arguably they should have been doing this in all the movies, like when they get the prefix code in Wrath of Khan, he should be, like, texting Spock, watch what happens next, lol, and stuff like that. But no, it's... He was basically doing that because he's like, Shinzon knows what I'm going to think, what I'm going to do next. He thinks he knows me.
He wouldn't expect
the last thing he'll expect is for me to destroy my own fucking ship ramming him. Which doesn't destroy them. I kind of appreciate that for once some ships, like, just like, it was like almost like an ancient naval battle. They became locked together and lots of really cool space debris happened and it looks really great.
Yeah.
But they survive it.
It's obvious like how they shot that with like two models colliding upside down, shot in slow motion, so you get like debris falling off, but it looks like it's like floating up.
I don't know, was that obvious? I don't think it was obvious.
It looks so great.
Yeah. Oh, well, old school physical effects can do a lot of neat things, and sometimes...
Did they do that with models? I just assumed that was CG.
I guess I thought it was CG, too.
They only built like a model like the Enterprise E saucer.
Okay.
But they used the actual model. But And they were showing parts of that in the trailer, and it looked pretty epic. It made me worry about the Enterprise Z if it would be destroyed.
You know, Picard was going to like do the all classic auto-destruct when he was offline, and I was like, oh, thank God.
But this is when you would do an auto-destruct, because this ship is a planet killer ship.
Yeah.
So you if need be, you blow up your crew to take it down.
Yeah. I will say... I love this movie. I even the Dune buggy scene I don't find offensive. I just find that I'd rather have those deleted scenes than that if we have to have a shorter movie. But I prefer a longer movie with all of it. Once Data does they do the crash.
Yeah.
And then
Let's talk about Picard getting over there.
Yeah,
first.
Picard.
Which this is where I have a problem. Is that I get
it's something he has to do, Fatheree.
he doesn't.
No, that's like the very much as a hyper masculine kind of.
They can only beam one person. He should have sent Worf or Data.
Yeah.
But when Worf is in a Next Generation movie, he sucks. So they should have sent Data. But Data finds a way to get over there anyway. So who's your third option?
Riker was tired from beating up
Brian Singer.
Right.
So no. and Patrick
He could have
Stewart,
called in the X-Men.
Patrick Stewart always lobbied to do more and more action in the movies.
Yeah.
Right.
And so by this point in time, I mean, he had enough sway that he was like, I want to drive a dune buggy. And so they gave it to him.
Yeah.
So I'm sure like him running around with like 2 guns, that was all him just doing the stuff that he wanted to do. And he does, it's kind of crazy when it's like Rambo Picard when he runs in there and he takes out like half a dozen Remans.
It is a little ridiculous.
But and then they have the knife fight. But I love
I feel Data does his jump, and I thought that was awesome. And I
like the jump.
Yeah.
After that, I feel the movie falls apart. I kind of love everything up to that point, and then after that, I just stopped caring. It's not as cool as what went before. Picard's gun bunny stuff is boring. Data's even presence there is contrived. He only shows up after Picard's done the fighting, and then Data blows. The transporter's stupid. It's just everything after that's lame.
It feels to me. It always felt a little too close to the Wrath of Khan to like Spock's sacrifice.
Only lame.
But
it is I'll say this though, like there's a fair number of specifics that are pretty different. You know, of course, Kirk and Pecan never physically faced off. Because
they couldn't come up with a believable way to make it happen, and here they couldn't either. They just did it anyway.
Yeah. I don't hate the knife fight though. Like Picard when he pulls that bar down and Shinzon kind of like runs into it and stabs himself. I remember the first time I saw this, and just like the amount of hate that Shinzon has when he like grabs the bar, like pulls himself closer.
The sound on that is really good, by the way. It sounds so gross, like that metallic on metal and flesh. Good Lord.
And then he puts
real.
He puts his hands on Picard's neck, like if he had like the strength left, like he would like try to choke him.
And yet Picard, who has 2 free hands, does nothing. I'm like,
well, I think it's because he sensed that it was not a real threat too, because Shinzon he never gets a good grip going.
But I think Picard's just like so freaked out by it.
Yeah, that's where I felt Picard should have gotten... By this point, Picard should be used to Shinzon being a crazy version of him, and he should be over it and getting the job done and moving on. And or perhaps, I'm sorry I couldn't save you, but just stunned shock and immobility was not the Picard I wanted to see.
I do think these scenes, the movie does kind of start to fall apart here, but I actually kind of like Data's last minute save and bringing up the little transporter thing from previously.
I agree with Brian that Picard shouldn't have been just petrified like that. He when the Thalaron radiation is about to detonate and kill all of his crew, he should have been able to keep his head in the game and do something about it to stop it. If Data hadn't gotten on there, everyone would have died.
I also wonder, did Picard need to go over there, or was Data's jump enough to just... Would Data gone in there, shoot everybody with the guns, run up there, easily beat Shinzon in a knife fight? Oh, you stuck me with a knife. Whack! Oh, your neck's broken. And blow, So I love this movie, but I really feel that everything after Data's jump up until the memorial service is just kind of not good.
Sometimes with a movie you like, and this is kind of what you are to this is maybe what I am with Generations a bit, is I squint in those scenes where they're like doing stuff I don't like, and I'm like, I could kind of imagine a way that this could have been written better and it could have quasi-worked or whatever, but I have to squint.
See, what I would have done is given him a transporter that can beam through shields and cloaking fields, and so instead of shooting the Enterprise, he's just beaming bombs on board it, or beaming bombs on board the Enterprise, and he's just going to beam the Thalaron bomb onto Earth. And so they get the big fight, and they finally stop it, and they're like, well, the Thalaron bomb's going to go off. Well, I can destroy it, but it'll kill us all. Oh, but we have this transporter here. We'll just beam you back with this transporter, you know. But somebody needs to run the controls. They never set it up with an auto timer. And that's how Picard gets out. That doesn't fix everything, but it fixes some of it. And it keeps the essential beats of the movie.
I think there's still some good stuff in here, though. Like, when Picard is back on the Enterprise, even... They have like that one joke that might kind of undercut the seriousness where he's held by the Romulans and he says on screen before he remembers that the screen has been blown up.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
But after that, when like the Romulans are, like they're going to send some shuttles over with like medical aid and stuff, and then Picard, he's so rattled by not only just like watching like his clone die, but then Data die.
Yeah,
and he's still trying to like do his duty, and he's telling like Geordi like, oh yeah, like the Romulans, they won't know like our docking person. And Geordi's like Captain, I'll take care of it.
Yeah,
right.
I
it's like he went on
moment.
to autopilot. Yeah,
where Geordi is just like.
Though I couldn't help but think, I thought Geordi was Data's best friend.
Yeah,
supposed to be.
True.
Yeah.
He should have been a little more rocked by those events. Well, I think he had like he had already like said his goodbye to Data when Data like jumped over there. Like he knew like there was only one person who was going to beam back from that ship.
Or maybe as an engineer, he was thinking, "We've got a backup."
But they do the little memorial thing with the
where Riker recalls the incident of seeing Data try to whistle.
Yeah,
yes,
from Encounter at Farpoint,
which was cool. I love.
Yeah,
that scene.
I like that.
I even you mentioned the realism of Picard being shook up in that scene. I liked Riker's story kind of trailing off because he tries to remember what tune Data was whistling. And not quite being able to remember it. It's just a nice little moment
just
of
so that
realism.
I remembered it though.
Yes, just so that all the nerds in the audience could be screaming. Well, how could you not remember?
Of course, he was whistling Sabotage.
And Picard also quotes Kirk from Star Trek 3 when he does the toast to absent friends.
Right.
Is that a thing people do outside of Star Trek?
I was looking up the thing on Murray Alpha last night, and I think they said it's like a naval tradition.
Oh, okay.
I think they said on Sundays specifically, that's when you toast absent friends.
Oh,
so it's maybe more of a naval thing. It's
nice
such
touch.
a kind of simple thing. I imagine the toast existed even before that.
Yeah.
So next time I'm getting drinks on Sunday Fun Day,
Yep.
I'll toast to absent friends.
I also like the ending setup for Riker having his command of what's the ship?
The USS Titan.
The Titan.
Yes.
Which they actually designed for the novels to put on the book covers. It's a Luna-class ship, and I have an Eagle Moss model of it if you're watching the video up there somewhere that you're not going to be able to make out. But it's a really cool design, and you should Google it. Or I guess if you're watching the video, I have an image of it right here on the screen.
It looks so cool.
Yes.
And specifically, he's actually going back to the neutral zone with a task force to
do some diplomacy stuff.
Yeah, I
It's
think
kind
that's
of weird because Riker kind of seems like more like the military commander guy than the diplomat guy, but he can do both, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The Enterprise isn't exactly in a state yet.
Yeah. This for a long time we thought that this might be the last we would see of Picard and the TNG crew. And we'll have at least Picard himself coming back later this year, so very exciting.
Yes.
Yep, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more, but I'm still hoping, I really want to see, like, Riker, Data, actually, any one of them I would like to see from there.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Pulaski. I'm down for it.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to be. It's going to be Pulaski.
I definitely want a cameo in there.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be at least one.
At least a cameo, hopefully more.
So,
but
I guess one other thing I want to say, this movie has the best warp jumps and transporter beams of anything attached to the Next Generation era. I love when the Enterprise does its warp jump. It's got the little trails, and it's got a little bit of lens flare around the flash with a little rainbow arc, and I love that.
The Reman disruptors. The Reman disruptors look cool.
Yes,
it looks like a little quantum torpedo, like the blue flare.
Yes,
it looks cool.
And they finally got the transporter beams to look like you remember in the original series, but also what you would expect from a motion picture. So I really minor things, but I liked it.
Right, he's a little technical polish.
Yes.
So Dave, do we have any subspace transmissions?
I do. Let's start out with some tweets here. First from Trekker Prize. I think it was.
Hi Gary. Just made us a new banner for Twitter and YouTube and Facebook.
It looks so good. We need to talk about it more in the next episode.
It does look good.
Anyway, he says, I think it was a great closure for the TNG movies. I'm not ashamed to say that I cried at the end. Interesting.
Gary also loves Star Trek V and Star Trek Generations.
Listen, I'm liking him more and more with every single thing you say.
Well,
let's see.
Y'all subscribe to Trekker Prize, though. He makes some pretty cool content. But next week, be sure to check back with us. We'll be talking about the San Diego Comic-Con news. There's going to be a bunch of Star Trek announcements. We're going to get info on Picard, on Lower Decks, on Discovery Season 3. So be sure to check that out. And until then, as always,
live long and prosper, y'all.
Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter, @TXTrek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fathereeactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.